Jonatan, emerging scholars group considerations are gaining prominence. How should insolvency regimes integrate ESG without diluting creditor certainty?
So I don't think that ESG concerns and creditor certainty are two competing goals. I think that you can have creditor certainty without, that doesn't affect if you give priority, for example, to environmental claims and bankruptcy. It's rather that the problem now being that often how you treat environmental claims in bankruptcy is due to how environmental law system and the bankruptcy system connects like this. And that creates somewhat of a mishap sometimes. Then that creates uncertainty. So if the legislator were to be active in these questions, I think that we could have very much certainty without affecting how you should do with ESG concerns in bankruptcy.
Sure. So, from an academic perspective,
Yeah.
is ESG in insolvency still largely aspirational, or are courts actually enforcing it meaningfully?
I think it's still aspirational in many jurisdictions. I was delving into this when I gave my presentation the other day at the university here in Hyderabad. And you can see that in some jurisdictions, such as Canada, it's very much environmental primacy that rules. And in some jurisdictions, as in Norway, for example, it's very much creditor primacy. So this is still aspirational in many jurisdictions. Yes, definitely.
So, should insolvency law explicitly recognize environmental and social liabilities, especially in distressed asset sales?
So I think that there are some very good compelling reasons for providing priority to environmental claims. One being that it's not only a question of allocating cost. The question is not just only about should the state or the municipality or the creditors or the polluter pay, but it's also a question about that if you do not provide priority to environmental claims, investors, they have the incentive to take risks that are making our society poor as a whole. There's some brilliant empirical research from the US highlighting that 4 of the largest coal companies in the US during a 5-year span externalized somewhere around $5.2 billion of, among other things, environmental debts. And this is the system. If you don't provide priority, you will provide incentives to certain investors to take risk that is only profitable for them because they can externalize environmental debts through bankruptcy in some of the cases. And in other cases, they can reap the benefits of their investment. So there are some compelling reasons for providing environmental claims with priority.
So, what insights from this year's ILA conference do you think suggest that ESG will or can shape insolvency outcomes in the near future?
So I think that the last session with emerging scholar groups highlighted that among young students there is a
responsibility?
No, there's a huge interest in these questions, and that's very promising, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So the last session was illustrative for that, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. What is the best part that you find about the ILA conference?
Meeting people from all around the world and exchanging perspective. I mean, it's not only getting all those different views, but also that you get to see yourself reflecting in their mirror.
Right.
So I get to see what's special with Sweden, for example, by discussing these questions with scholars from the US, from South Africa, and from India and Singapore, and so on and so forth. So that's the best thing, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonatan, for taking out the time for the interview.
Thank you.